I want to talk about Mahler, and I want to talk about Philadelphia. Let me sit down here. We were in Philadelphia last weekend for a concert that I've been looking forward to all year. Philadelphia Orchestra, Yannick Netzensogan conducting Mahler's Third Symphony, which is, hang on, my favorite Mahler. And I know that's a trivial thing to say. What does it mean to be a favorite? But the Mahler Third has been part of like my musical aspiration for as long as I can remember. As a teenager, I remember listening to a recording. Bernstein recorded the full set of Mahler symphonies twice. And I grew up listening to the second of those that he did with Vienna in the 80s. I now listen to the earlier version that he did in the 70s with New York. And the later versions are really quite extraordinary. But I had the CDs and I listened to Mahler Third, and the final movement of Mahler's Third, the sixth movement of the Third Symphony. Well, actually, the fifth movement on from there's a moment where choral forces come in, children's choir, women's voices, and they're singing a bell. They go bim bam bim bam ba da 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 da. From that moment on until the end of the piece is just being sent into orbit. The review here, the Philadelphia Inquirer review of the piece says, the more popular, similarly scaled Mahler Symphony No. 2 celebrates rebirth. The more pagan Symphony No. 3 enacts rebirth, and not from a safe distance. And that's not a bad way of putting it. They also write, best not to analyze, but to submit to it. I remember listening to that final movement. I remember two particular times I listened to it. One, I was listening to it on my own, and just, I'm not, just melting, physically melting. And that was 40 years ago. So this year, 2024, began with a performance of Mahler Third. I'll link to the video. We drove up to Erie, which is, a couple hours north of here, and heard the Erie Philharmonic perform Mahler's Third. And it was fantastic. Loved it. I kind of knew that maybe the Pittsburgh Symphony or some other orchestra, New York Philharmonic, would sound different, but for a performance of Mahler's Third, it had everything that you needed. Everything I needed. But my goodness, this performance last weekend, I don't know that I'm going to hear. It's going to end up, that concert is going to be one of the top, top 3 performances that I'll ever have heard, musical experiences. I couldn't believe it. For one thing, played with no intermission, which is a fantastic choice. There's the option to do an intermission after the first movement. The first movement is, a third of the piece. So the other 5 movements are maybe only twice as long as whatever that math is, whatever. But you shouldn't put an intermission there, and they didn't. He didn't, Yannick. Not only that, at the beginning of the concert, he encouraged the audience not to applaud between movements. I have nothing against applauding between movements, particularly when it's a 2-hour piece. Go ahead and applaud. But nobody did. And so then at the end, 2 hours later, when it finished, It was liturgical. I mean, it was exactly what it's supposed to be. Mahler talks about having written creation in this symphony. And it does. The final minute of the piece is just you're finally resolving into D major. And I thought it was never going to end. I was hearing it and I felt, is he adding in measures? It was just kept going. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. It just kept going. And then the final chord, he held it for an infinity. It was the most beautiful concert I can ever I can not think of a concert. I felt. I mean, look. I don't know. So we all got there. We drove out. Catherine, my wife, and I drove out with our dogs, and we stayed in an Airbnb right in Center City, Philadelphia. Our daughter lives out there. I'm vaguely familiar with the city. Haven't visited a whole lot. I've not spent a lot of time downtown, which is, I guess, what Philadelphians call Center City. What I call downtown is Center City. It's a bit overwhelming. I live in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is a great city. It is a great city, but it's not as big as Philadelphia. Philadelphia is, I don't know, 3 times as big, 10 times as big. It's a real city. People live in Philadelphia. People live in Pittsburgh, but not downtown so much. So we stayed right in Center City in a nice apartment. But our dogs never quite. They're city dogs. Like, we live in the city, but we live in a neighborhood. So they never quite got used to it. I went out for a nice walk each morning, and the sun's coming up. It's quite, it's quite attractive, but the city's dirty. Pittsburgh might be that dirty as well, but it's so much smaller that the dirt, I don't ever see the dirt. Sunday we went to the Barnes Foundation, which is a museum based on the collection of Barnes, Frank Barnes, Fred Barnes. And having been there, I now know that it is uniquely curated based on Barnes's own desire that each room just be an educational experience, but also like an emotionally overwhelming experience. Like, each wall, it kind of looks like this space. Each wall is just covered with paintings, like 30 Renoirs right in front of you, with a couple of Cézanne thrown in. And no information on the wall, which apparently was his real strong direction. Don't put text on the wall, because then that will tell people how to experience the art. Let them come to it. Like, you have to come to Mahler. You have to come to the Mahler Third Symphony and simply accept that for the next hour and 45 minutes, there will be a cosmic experience. I don't know how else to describe it. The cover art on the playbill was beautiful. There was a Mahler standing there with a swirling image in front of him. Kind of references what the hall looks like. I had never been to the Philadelphia Performance Space before. The Marian Anderson Hall in the Kimmel Center. It has so maybe these blocks refer to the dark wood shaping of the hall. It sounded so good. I mean, Pittsburgh is a great symphony orchestra. And, you see in my videos here, I'm always very enthusiastic about the concerts I go to. But this Philadelphia orchestra just sounded different. Wow. I know that historically Philadelphia is known for the string sound. That's something that you will see if you Google Philadelphia Orchestra. Eugene Ormandy created this very rich string sound, which they certainly had, but holy heck, those wind instruments just, you could hear their breath. I mean, you could feel their breath as they came in. And so you're probably wondering why I started in front of my Eurorack. Well, one of the ways I process memory and thought is sampling it, mucking around with it, and often with just the two modules, the Morphagene and the Echophon, which were the first two Eurorack modules I ever bought. They're both from Make Noise. Anyway, so I loaded up a recording of just a kind of a random section from the sixth movement, and then run it through all my glitchy stuff. Of here, and I might do a little bit of editing, but this is how I process emotion. Often is with the Eurorack. Sometimes with voice. In my Bandcamp, I have a lot of pieces where there's a poem or a section of text that I turn into fragments. I'm thinking of the T.S. Eliot piece. I'll link to that as well. But I've been meaning to do this all week. It's now Saturday. The concert was last Saturday, so we drove in Saturday morning. Met my dad, who came up from. He and my mother live just outside Washington D.C. He took the train up. We met, grabbed some takeout dinner, and then went to the concert, which was at 8:00. The Airbnb we were staying in, 5-minute walk to the hall, so that was great. And then it happened. Then Sunday, walked down. We went to the Barnes Sunday, and then we came home Monday morning. Left. So it was a bit of a whirlwind trip, a lot of driving. To go see that concert. I'm trying to think what else I can say. This is kind of maybe a bit of a rambling video, but I do those. That's my thing, right? What would I recommend? Well, when you know what I'm doing now is I have all the Mahler symphony scores, and periodically I will follow along, but I've never really studied. I studied the second in college, but that's about it. So I kind of want to do a score study of the third. I mean, I have the piano reduction. That's the other thing I did in my other video is I played along with Bernstein conducting it. Also another way of processing emotion. I think it's processing emotion, and I don't think it's avoiding it. I think it's inarticulate and irrational, but those aren't bad things when you're trying to just digest all this information. That third symphony is what I want to write. Not that symphony, but I can't be arsed to just write music and then have it be performed. I mean, look, it's not like people are knocking on the door to commission and play my music, but there has to be more to it than just writing a piece that gets played. Right? It's got to do something. It's got to mean something. I think I'd rather produce 5 minutes of Eurorack improv every day and have that be my output that would be closer to doing what Mahler does than the other stuff I write that maybe gets played once every 10 years. Or if you watch this channel, you hear me play the piano every once in a while. You know what I mean? It's got to do something liturgical. And I'm using liturgical in a loose sense. I don't mean it has to be in a church with a priest, but I mean it has to. And the thing is, I don't know if I can write that kind of music. That, right? I think on the Eurorack I get closer, get into the space. But I'm not a good orchestrator, an adequate pianist, right? A fifth tier composer. And hey, look, I mean, I'll take that. So I need to think about why write. I've talked about this a lot. Why write when it's not going to be, right? I like writing. When I write, when I put pen on paper, pencil. That is a wonderful sensation. How to share that sensation, it cannot be limited to just a concert that nobody will come to, that will not sound that good, right? The sensation I feel when I write the music is what I want you all to feel. The music isn't good enough to do it, I think is what I think. My music. So what else is there? Well, there's this channel to talk about Mahler and to share that enthusiasm. And then there's the effort, the constant striving. And that's maybe, if you're still listening 20 minutes in, that's what I want this channel to do. It is taking the effort to do something, even if I know it's not really very good and nobody's going to hear it. So if me talking about this compels you to go and do your thing, whatever that thing is, music, poetry, dance, sculpture, work, data management, whatever, go do it. Keep your wits about you.